And I'll end this day, or set of videos anyways, with another Silver Doctors article. It's actually a few days old as well, but just hadn't had time to get around to it. It's a decent one to talk about. Again, this whole Fed balance sheet, normalization, all this crap. Dave Kranzler of Investment Research Dynamics, who is a fund manager. One detail everybody missed from yesterday's FOMC, which again, that would have been the 20th FOMC meeting, the Federal Reserve Open Market Committee, where it's just a roundabout circus of nonsense. Anyways, will the Fed really, quote unquote, normalize its balance sheet? To begin with, how exactly does one define normalize in reference to the Fed's balance sheet? The Fed predictably held off raising rates again today. However, it said that beginning in October, it would no longer reinvest proceeds from its treasury and mortgage holdings and let the balance sheet run off. Here's the problem with letting the treasuries and mortgage just mature. Treasuries never really mature. Rather, the maturities are rolled forward by refinancing the outstanding treasuries due to mature. The government also issues even more treasuries to fund its reckless spending habits. Unless the Fed reverse repos the treasuries right before they are refinanced by the government, the money printed by the Fed to buy the treasuries will remain in the banking system. I'm surprised no one has mentioned this minor detail. The Fed has also kicked the can down the road on hiking interest rates in conjunction with shoving their phony 1.5% inflation number up our collective rear ends. The Fed funds rate has been below 1% since October 2008, or 9 years. Quarter point interest rate hikes aren't really hikes. We're at 1% from zero in just under 2 years. That's not hiking. Until they start doing the reverse repos in $50 to $100 billion chunks at least monthly, all this talk about normalization is nothing but the babble of children in the sandbox. I think the talk and threat of it is being used to slow down the decline in the dollar. To justify its monetary policy, Yellen stated today that she's very pleased in progress made in the labor market. Again, how does one define progress? Here's one graphic, which I'll show you right now, that shows that labor market has been, and how it has been and continues to be a complete abortion. 1980 to 2015 is all we get, right? Which meaning, what about 2016? At least 2017 we're in. Welfare and entitlement spending. Now that's an interesting stat, going up heavily. Labor force participation rate versus that. First it was kind of following up. Wait a minute. 1995, 96, 97, 2000. So it started declining in 2000. But I thought we had to worry about the 2008 crash. That's the one that did it, right? No, it had already started. Then we have 2008. And it got much worse. This is horrible. The labor force participation rate has been plunging. It's been going down since 2000, but plunging since, well, he says plunging since 2000. I was going to be fair and say plunging since 2008, just going down since 2000, but we'll just go with what he said. It's currently below 63%. This means that over 37% of the working age population in the U.S. is not considered part of the labor force. That's close to 100 million people between the ages of 15 and 64, for whatever reason, are not looking for a job or actively employed. A record number of those employed are working more than one part-time job in order to put food on the table and a roof over the heads of their household. Good job, Janet, and Bernanke. I'll add Bernanke. Good job, Janet Yellen and Ben Bernanke. Bravo. The blue line, again, which we saw, shows the amount of dollars spent by the government on welfare. Note the upward point acceleration in the rate of welfare spending correlates with the same point in time at which the labor force participation rate began to plunge. Again, nice work, Janet, but, well, you know, which it was closer to 2007 and 8 when they actually crossed. But again, that was old Bernanke. I got to be fair here. Got to be fair. Bernanke and Janet. The labor force participation rate is much closer to the true rate of unemployment in the United States. John Williams of ShadowStats.com has calculated that rate of unemployment using the methodology used by the government a couple of decades ago, and has shown that a truer rate of unemployment is actually closer to 23%. The true level of unemployment is definitively the reason why the rate of welfare spending increased in correlation with the decline in those considered to be part of the labor force. It could also be shown using the Fed's data that another portion of the plunging labor force participation rate is attributable to the acceleration in student loans outstanding. I would argue that part of the splurge in student loan funding initiated by Obama was used to keep potential job seekers being forced by economic necessity from seeking jobs and therefore could be removed from the labor force definition, which in turn lowers the unemployment rate. As I write this, Yellen is asserting that U.S. economic performance has been good. I'd like to get my hands on some of the opioids she must be abusing. Retail sales have been dropping precipitously. The third largest retail store bankruptcy in history was filed yesterday. Household debt is at an all-time high. Government debt hits an all-time high every minute of the day. And interest rates are at 5,000-year lows, sourced from King World News. Note to Janet, near zero cost of money is not in any way an attribute of an economy that is doing well. In fact, record levels of systemic debt and rising corporate and household bankruptcies are the symptoms of failed central bank economic and monetary policies. This is further reinforced by the record level of income disparity between the 1% highest income earners and the rest of the U.S. labor force. The entire U.S. economic and financial system is collapsing. If the Fed truly follows through on its threat to normalize its balance sheet and raise rates, the U.S. will likely collapse sometime in the next couple of years. On the other hand, up to this point since Bernanke's famous taper speech in May 2013, most of the Fed statements with regard to hiking rates, hiking them for real, and reducing its balance sheet has been nothing but hot air. And in fact, unless the Fed reverse repos its balance sheet back to the banks, its assertion of balance sheet normalization is nothing more than another in a long series of lies. Like I said, who are they going to sell this crap back to? The banks? The same banks they took this garbage off their balance sheets, the mortgage-backed security, all this trash? Oh, banks, you guys are chock full of money, aren't you? Here, take these back now. Indian giver. Fed, you Indian giver. No, take it back. Take it back. Who's going to buy it? Nobody. Oh, that's like you said. This assertion that, unless the Fed reverse repos its balance sheet back to the banks, its assertion of balance sheet normalization is nothing more than hot air. That's what he's saying. It's more than hot air. And why, as I got to mention again, because speaking of Bernanke, and I said this recently because I was talking about a similar article just the other day about like this. Of course, it didn't show the labor force participation rate as worse than terrible. Didn't have that chart up, but that was a little bonus. That's a little bonus for you guys today. But Bernanke said, and again, I think it was 2016 is the date he gave. It would, again, we're going to have this ballooning balance sheet at the Fed. TARP funds, banker bailout, all of it. And then, right around 2016, it'll be right around back to normal. Had a chart, showed the chart, here it is, yep. Well, that's funny, I could have my kids draw anything. Hey kids, you want to draw something? Draw something. I'm going to show this like it's the truth. In the future, here's the chart, here's what it means. Nothing. Anybody can do it. And the Fed did it. And Ben Bernanke was at the helm. And Ben Bernanke showed that chart. And now Ben Bernanke is saying, because it didn't come true, it's still at $4.5 trillion. Maybe we should just leave it. I wonder if I could quickly, Ben Bernanke, don't unwind the balance sheet. I'm not sure what term I should maybe use to find this. Let's see. The Fed is unwinding its balance sheet. Is that a problem? Shrinking the Fed's balance sheet. Brookings Institute. Bernanke argues that the Fed should not begin to shrink its balance sheet. Let's go with that. The Brookings. To help stabilize the financial system and promote economic recovery, starting in late 2008, the Federal Reserve purchased large quantities of financial assets. Love the word assets, because do you know that on the books of the government, student loan debt, unpaid debt, is called an asset. It's listed as an asset. But anyway, they purchased large quantities of financial assets, primarily treasury securities and U.S. government-backed mortgage-related securities. The policy of so-called quantitative easing, yada, yada, yada. First, where is he at? Second, before beginning to shrink the balance sheet, the FOMC should have it clear. To be clear, as I post this, I am taking no position. Bernac. Let me just search for Bernac. The Bernac. Where is he? This is a long article. Oh, wait a minute. Give him the respect he deserves. Ben S. Bernanke, Distinguished Fellow in Residence, Economic Studies. Twitter, Ben Bernanke. Let's scroll down. Unwind. Let me just pause this because, hold on. Okay, so this is interesting. Let me just show you this. The Brookings.edu. There's the quote. Bernanke argues that the Fed should not begin to shrink its balance sheet. Ben Bernanke argues that the Fed should not begin to shrink its balance sheet. First, to minimize the risk that underwriting the balance sheet will, whatever. So I click on this, and I figured I could search for this phrase right here. Argues that the Fed should not begin. All right. Copy. And click on it. Control F to find it. Paste it. 0 of 0. Can't find it. Should not begin. So let me just get rid of that. Fed should not begin. Can't find it. It's not here anymore. But here's the whole article. What's happening? Doesn't make any sense. Go back. How about I go to the cache page? You know, what it used to be. Do a search. Same thing. Can't find it. Gone. So exactly where did that statement go? Now see, I knew the statement was made. Because I'm telling you about it. And I'm pulling it from somewhere. I know what he said. And sure enough, Brookings has it, but now it's not there. It's there in the Google search engine results, but it's not in the cache, nor is it on the actual page. But be rest assured, I just showed it to you. Ben Bernanke doesn't want to unwind all of a sudden. We should not unwind. Why? Because he knows you can't unwind. They can't. Unless, like he just said, this guy, Kranzler or whatever. They have to do the reverse repos back to the banks. The banks don't want that trash. That's garbage. We got rid of that for a reason. You take it now. Taxpayers on that. So I can't wait to see how the unwind actually goes. You know, but it's gonna take some time. It's not gonna happen on October 1st, and all of a sudden we get to see what happens. It's gonna take a little time. Take care.